Okay, we'll call to order the Board of Zoning Appeals. If you'll please stand for the pledge. Jared, would you lead us in the pledge, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain standing for a moment of silence. Thank you. The cell tower on our agenda, the last one, which is on Veterans Parkway, is at their request has been deferred. So we'll let you know when that comes back. The first item of business is a request by the Renewed Life Ministries Outreach. And we deferred that last month to give a chance for those folks to meet with the neighbors, and I think that meeting has taken place. So I'm going to ask our staff to give us a report at this time. Would you like to? I guess we better back up again. Call roll, please.
Gary Farley.
Here.
Veronica Buchanan.
Here.
Jerry Sartain.
Here.
Joe Machoto. Michael Rather.
Here.
Jared Barrett.
Here.
Zane Cantrell.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Okay, and we better to approve the minutes of last month as well. Do we have a motion to do that? Okay, do we have a second? Second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, like sign. They are approved. Now, back to the Renewed Life Ministries outreach and the deferral of that for 1 month. And my understanding that there was a meeting that we had, the staff and the board had asked to take place. And I'm going to ask for a review of that to give us a report from our staff at this time.
Thank you. Renewed Life Ministries, application 2017-35, involves the location at 7578 Manchester Pike. They are seeking special exception approval to allow the establishment of a transitional home upon a property located in the RM medium density residential zoning district. And next. And these are aerials of the property. Last month, the board heard from the applicant and surrounding neighbors. There was testimony both in support and opposition of the requests. And after hearing the testimony, the board decided to allow the applicant an additional month to meet with the surrounding neighbors to see if they could provide more information about the services that they will offer and the uses that will be established at the site. This meeting was held on August 2nd in the Planning Department's mezzanine room, and it was well attended. I believe there was about 10 or 12 people, and there was a lot of information that was being exchanged between the applicant and the surrounding neighbors. We posted a sign upon the property, and property owners were re-notified of the hearing tonight. And these are photos of the surrounding area and the site itself. During the initial review, we have some distributed letters that were received since the neighborhood meeting to the board for their consideration. This is a site plan, and staff's recommendations have not been modified since last month's report.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm going to ask the Renewed Life Ministries, the person representing this, to come forward at this time. Just to verify, you did meet with the community and
I did.
tried to get a hold of everyone to let them know.
Yes, sir.
Okay. You answered as many questions as you possibly could.
I think so.
I'm going to give our staff, our board here a chance to ask you any additional questions that they might have.
Can you tell me what you think the outcome was of that meeting? Did it work to answer the questions or fears, or did it not?
I think we answered their questions. I don't think it changed anyone's mind, though.
Okay.
There was a concern that the property values were going to be lowered because of our being there, and based on several studies that I researched, that's just not the case.
Do you feel like that you meet the definition of an institutional place?
No, sir.
Okay. Are you a nonprofit organization?
Yes, sir.
Jerry?
How many people did you have at your meeting?
On August the 2nd, there was about 10 or 12 people there total.
Can you tell me what happens if there's a disagreement and you ask someone to leave? How do they leave?
You mean from the meeting?
No,
Oh, from our program.
from your program, do they walk out on the road? Do they
No,
just
sir.
take them to town?
No, we'll take him down to the bus station, or we will arrange for someone, a relative, a friend, or a family member to come pick them up. We don't just turn them loose, on the street.
Thank you.
Any other question? Veronica?
Well, we've been located in our current location since 2003, and there's houses all around us, kind of like what we're asking for right now, very similar.
Any other question? Thank you. You may be seated. Now, we're going to open this for a public hearing. If we've been through this, most of you have had your opportunity to be up here and to state your case. I'm going to ask if you have a chief spokesperson to come forward at this time, especially the next door neighbor of this site. Do you have someone here to speak for you? Or if anyone is here that didn't get to speak last month, either for or against, we want you to come forward as well.
My name's Jim Branson. I live next door to this property right here. I'm at 7614. I have a few questions that have been brought up since the last meeting. We spoke with some of their administrators outside after the meeting, and we asked one of the questions that y'all did, what happens if they fail out of the program? And they said they take them to the bus station. I'll challenge any of you to tell me where the bus station is in Murfreesboro today. I don't think there is one. Is there one? Yeah. Okay. Well, I thought there used to be one out by the interstate, and I didn't know if it was still functioning or not. They said that they fail out of the program either the first week or the first 3 months. That was their usual quit time. In that case, are they got to replace those beds? Is it going to be a revolving door out there? Is it going to be people coming and going? Is it going to be transients all the time? And I guess my main point I want to say is the asking price on this property was $665,000. Can't they find another place out away from residential that they won't be surrounded by people that do not want them there? And that's all I need to ask. Thank you very much.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Next.
My name is Sarah Mason, and I also live right next to the property at 7720 Manchester Pike. I have here a petition that numerous neighbors have signed saying that we do not want this in our area. This is for anyone to look at, multiple pages of multiple people that have signed this. I did also attend the meeting that they had this past week, and one of my questions to them was, what assets would this bring to our community? And do you know what he said? This gentleman Where'd he go? Right there. He told me that he'll have 5 men to help me out if I needed anything done around the house. Do you know how inappropriate that is? First off, I don't need any man to help me out. I've got a husband, I've got a child, and I've got 3 children actually, but I have a son as well. I don't need somebody to tell me that a great asset to having this property house these type of people, to tell me that a good asset to this community is going to be that I'll have 5 men to help me out. That was totally inappropriate, and he didn't have anything else to say after that regarding what this would do to our community, other than the fact that he would have these men help me, I guess, if I needed to do something around the house. So, you know, I know that I can speak for multiple neighbors, and some neighbors are elderly and cannot be here, but we did get their signatures on this as far as, you know, we are not for this. We're not doubting the program, but it's just not, we don't want the program in our area. So I hope that you all will agree that it's for somewhere else and not on Manchester Pike. Thank you for your time.
Yeah, you just turned it in to our staff. Make it a part of the record.
Thank you.
Next.
Hello, my name's Kevin Bogle. My mother, Geneva Bogle, is the one that lives right in front of the main property there. And I don't doubt the validity and the usefulness of this program. I think it's great. I think it's something that they all need. But I think it needs to be in a little bit more secluded area. My concern is, one of them, that if you have 10 plus people there that have drug addiction or alcohol addiction problems, at some point in time, somebody's going to have a bad day. And what's going to become of it later? Will we get 20 in there, 25? You know, what will this turn into at a later date? And another concern is property values, although that was the least talked about, I think, at the meeting was property values. Most of it was safety.
Thank you, sir. Next.
I'm Geneva Bogle. I live at 7536 Manchester Highway. You can see my little house down on the highway, less than 400 feet from where they want to have the staff. And I also own the house at 7526. And I said, no, this is a residential community. I do not want this in my backyard. I share over 900 feet of property line and with a place for sale. And the Bogles have been in the community since the 40s. I've been here since 1960. That's almost 57 years. While my boys were in school, my husband was Cub Master, Weblo, and Boy Scout Master. And I believe he was PTO president for 2 years of Buchanan School when it was 8th grade. And he has camped with the Scouts in the back lot. In later years, I have walked carrying my grandchildren to get them to sleep along the property line. My husband's record can be checked. Renewed Life Ministry records cannot be checked. They want to bring drug addicts and alcoholics from out of state next door. Gordon's Market, a fourth of a mile from my drive, sells beer. Now, devaluating my property and the community, I will say no to. I want my property to remain a safe place for upright people and the community. No, what is RLM? Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Well, I didn't get to make it, and I'm Rick Evans. I didn't get to make it to the last one. We was on vacation, so I'm here. And I got the property across the road. It's got the greenhouses and my house and my son's house and my helper's house. So it's 3 residents there. And I think it's a good cause what they're doing, but you know, well, I'll just tell you my history. I was in the service, and I did drugs and sold drugs and got busted and went to prison. And while in there, they said that 84% went back. Well, I was the 16 that didn't. So I learned my lesson, and we didn't have places like that back in to go or anything. So I know it can be done without places like that. And what bothers me most, I reckon, is the 10 to 20 or 30% that they said they had that doesn't make it through. If they've got 10 and it's 20%, that means there's 2 of them that we got to be careful with and worry about what's going to happen to our property and the neighborhood. And if they got 20, that's, you know, it's just simple math. That's 4 of them you got to worry about, and it just concerns me as far as the community. And there's just a few hundred feet from there, they sell beer and they got gambling machines in there and stuff, just a few hundred feet from there. So if they've got an addiction, it looks like that would only trigger it to be worse. To where if they was out where where they couldn't get to it readily available, I think it would be better for them.
Thank you. Appreciate your comments. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Gail Evans. I'm Rick's wife. We did not make it to the last meeting, but guys, I'm a born-again Christian. And do not think that I don't want these people helped, because I help people like this myself. Rick and I have been into foreign countries, and we've seen everything and been involved in everything just about. And I know that these people need help, and I'm not against that. I got a 3-year-old grandson and a 6-year-old grandson that lives in the house right beside us. It is my job to protect those children and our son and his wife. And also, the man that works for us has got 4 boys and a wife also that we have to look after. This is our responsibility. If the guys want to do this, go for it. But please do it somewhere else. And if you need help, and I don't know if you win some of these people, if you say you are a Christian organization, do you win these people to the Lord? Are they born again Christians when they leave there? If they're not, guys, you're failing. If they are born again and know the Lord Jesus Christ when they leave there, and this is part of this, then you are doing your job. I don't know. I just know what God does for me, and I just know that I need to protect my family. This is what God has asked us to do. And like I said, I will gladly help. I'm not against helping, but please don't put them there with my grandchildren. Please, I'm begging you. And yes, alcohol has been mentioned. There's 3 places they can get alcohol real fast right there where it's going to be. They've got the interstate, and if they're so mind to, they can go to that place and get their beer and hit that interstate and they're gone, maybe. But are they going to come back and need money or something and break into our homes? Because they know where we are. There is a 10-minute walk where they can get a hold of it. To the interstate is probably 15 or 20-minute walk. To the other place is probably about a 15 or 20-minute walk.
You need to finish up.
I'm sorry? Okay. And I will, but I'm just asking you to think about this, think about your children, and just pray about this thing. Guys in the community, we've got to pray, and that's where it all stands, but please do not put this there.
Thank you. Next.
My name is Sue Albin, and I am not from this community, but I have quite a bit of relationship, I guess, with RLMO. I became aware of it when a friend of mine in Nashville had her grandson who desperately needed a place to go. And Derek very graciously ended up taking him in. He needed more than what Derek has been able to give him, because first of all, he is younger than most of the men that Derek takes. Derek likes to have them at least 30 or older, because by that time they have probably reached a point in their lives that they know they're either going to stay in that lifestyle of drug or alcohol addiction, or they're going to end up dead or in prison. So for that reason, I think he prefers to have them. This particular young man, he did bring in, and thank the Lord that he helped him. He is not there anymore, but he stayed there 9 months. And in that 9 months, his life was changed. Not completely, but he made a change, and he is still changing. Another young man that my sons grew up with, I personally took him to North Carolina to a place, Bethel, House of whatever, I can't hope or something like that, I think. But anyway, that Derek recommended for him to go there first. He was alcoholic, and I had never seen alcoholism like I saw in this young man. He grew up with my boys, and I knew he drank some, but I did not know until I picked him up one day myself, and don't want to see that again. But I took him to Bethel. He stayed there.
You need to finish up.
Okay.
We're under a time limit of 3 minutes.
Well, he stayed 2 months. He is now in the program. Now, addressing your fears, these people are not transients. They are men. They are just like your sons or your daughters. If you have young children, they're going to grow up and they're going to make mistakes. There's no guarantees on anything. I don't care if you don't approve this or do approve it. There's no guarantees one way or the other.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
I just wanted to say that God didn't give us a spirit of...
Let's stay with the rules. 3 minutes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, board. My name is Michael Mason. Just 1 second. I just want to acknowledge that I was at the first meeting, I was at the neighborhood meeting, and I'm here at this meeting to support the neighborhood that we do not want it in our community. And the petitions has been signed. We got others that still want to sign the petition to go forward. And that's all I want to say.
Thank you. Next.
How y'all doing today? My name is Ronald Williams. I was asked by a good friend of mine to come up here and share a few things with you that, from my experience, I might know about this. I know that it's a good program. The guy's a great guy and all. Just want to share with you that y'all all know that they've got a right to put in so many people in this house and to move on use by right. So there's no way that that y'all can vote that says that he can't be there, because we all know that, or we should. The problems that I've experienced with such things in my past in this is, I know that y'all suggested last time that you might have more control if you approve this. Well, I found that not to be true. And real briefly, the state has a whole division armed with the right people to deal with people that are in this business. The county does not. And we had a situation out in our neighborhood, and it took us over 2 years to rectify it. And as I was explaining to the gentleman, it's not because the first people start, but because when you approve it, he can sell it to Joe Blow, and they might not be the great person that he is, and you're stuck with this ordinance. Secondly, if you get this approved, that's step one for him to be building something larger than he has. And in his application, he says that he would like to grow it from the 1-year program to the 3 or 4 month program. Now, the other night in the meeting, I was asking him what his completion ratio was, and he said about 20%. Well, that means that if he's got 10, there's 8 that don't make it. And so we had a little discussion about that. Now, in that industry, that might be a very successful program. But from a community standpoint, you have 80% of the people that are going to fall out first week, second week, and so on and so forth. So that was a concern. Also, one of the other things that I looked up that I haven't heard anything about was a septic system on this property. So I go up and pull the papers on that, and it's approved on one lot for a 3-bedroom, and then they came back and added for another bedroom, but the groundwater people could not find where it was complete for both lots over there. So I would just suggest that in anything that you might get that up to date if you move forward on any of that with that. And according to the regulations and all that, I guess is the most important part about what are you going to do, you know, it always says this generic thing, adversely affect the other properties in the area, and I guess that's kind of an open-ended thing for interpretation. But according to the things that are on here, it goes on to say in section that there must be demonstrated need for such activities to serve the neighborhood and the total community. Now, I don't disagree that he's serving people, but when I asked him how many people were from Rutherford County, there was none. The majority of his applicants, if I don't remember all of them, are from out of state. So,
Commissioner, you need to finish
okay.
up, please.
So I would just say,
go ahead and finish your.
Okay. So, being with that, they get jobs, they come in, they're 501c3, so they don't pay taxes, they don't do this. So the adverse effect on the community is not just with the neighbors, but it's the not paying taxes and everything else. But they're still allowed to do that. So I would suggest to you that just let them use what they have by use by right, and then let the state deal with it, because they are much more equipped to go in and monitor this situation than the county is, because the county just has a codes department and that. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Good to see you again. I appreciate we're going to close the public hearing now. And we've had 2 different sessions of the public hearing. And I wanted to make sure that those of you who didn't get a chance to speak, or if you live right next door to it in the neighborhood, that you had a chance to say anything after the meeting that you had with these folks. When we're looking at this, I want all of you to understand, and I hope that you will understand this. the board has to take in consideration the requirements that we have for these types of homes and other things that come up before us. One of those things can't be just because we don't want it. Put it in somebody else's neighborhood. We've got to have some very strict requirements that we have in considering these types of things. If we do something illegal, it's going to end up in Chancery Court, folks. We're not the final decision. If we do something illegal, then it ends up in Chancery Court. Chancery Court's going to overrule anything that we've said and done here. I've seen it happen time and time again when we just say, we just don't want it somewhere else. We've got to have a good reason for it. Our staff tells us that it meets the requirements. Okay? Now, after it meets the requirements, then we've got to have a good legal reason for us to turn it down. So from that point, I want you to understand where the board is considering. Gary?
I've got a question for staff. As far as the planning department, as a use by right, how would the planning department define this use as far as institutional? How would they define that?
We would consider it a family. That has been the position of staff, that if they were to only have 8 residents with staff members, it would be considered a family. But tonight, we're considering a transitional home.
Okay. In the zoning ordinance, it speaks about institutional, and it speaks about nonprofit, correct?
In the definitions, it does, but we're considering the transitional home and not considering this as a single-family residence and a family living in a residence.
Okay, what would give you the authority to consider it that way instead of the way I'm talking about?
Well, the planning department director has the authority to apply our zoning ordinance and if there is a disagreement with how the zoning ordinance is applied, that would be an interpretation from the planning director would be necessary.
Okay, so why do we have that language in there, institutional and
I could not answer that at this time.
That's the problem I'm having right now. Is that language is in the
But that's not what we're considering, like our attorney advised us earlier, we're considering as to whether or not this property is appropriate for a transitional home.
I'm just telling you where I'm having trouble right now is that it's in there as far as the language in the zoning ordinance, and it being in there, we're not, planning department is not looking at that language. You're looking at something different, but it's still in there. If language is in the law, or language is in a code, or language is in an ordinance, you have to look at that language to determine, to make the decision, in my opinion.
Yes, sir. But in all due respect, the issue that you have with our application of the definition of family and how the definition of institution plays into that would actually be applicable at the time if the applicant decided to establish the use under a use by right as opposed to seeking a transitional home special exception, which they are here before you tonight for.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Michael? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So when will the building permit, when they pull the building permit or whatever they're going to do, they found out about this environmental issue with that Commissioner Williams was talking about?
Septic tank issue.
What now? find that out? I was just curious.
Oh, well, that's an easy one. Anything that requires site plan approval, and it's the applicant's intentions to convert the existing home into office space, they'll be required to provide parking. So the new use will be reviewed during a site plan review, and therefore, just like any other use that requires site plan review, we would require all those elements to be addressed during that phase. And because right now the applicant's just seeking zoning approval, and if it's determined that he needs additional soils to support what he's proposing, he'll have to obtain a permit from the state.
So if he can't get that taken care of, what do we do with this?
Well, the thing is if someone can't meet our development regulations, they can't establish the use. They won't be issued any permits. They can't get a certificate of occupancy. Ma'am?
Will we have to go back and reverse it?
No. Every special exception, especially for non-residential uses and uses like this, is conditioned upon them meeting all of our other regulations. So it doesn't exempt them from meeting our minimum development regulations that any use would be required to meet.
Michael?
I'm not going to have a discussion about this. You can actually just shake your head. It appears to me because there are proposed 10 students, if it were 8 or less, they would fall under family. Because it's 10, they have to come before us, and it's looked at as institutional. Is that kind of fair to say?
That is fair to say,
Okay.
yes.
With that, all right, I'll leave that subject. My packet here states that this home meets most of the general requirements. From what I'm looking at, the first requirement is the only one that I didn't see was really satisfied. Design, located, and proposed to be operated in the interest of health, safety, and welfare. Is that right? When you say most, they meet most requirements. Which one or ones do they not meet? It appears all the rest of them they meet.
So are you saying my use of the word most is incorrect because I've not demonstrated that they have not met any requirement? Well, obviously, some of these health and public health, safety, and welfare, that's what a lot of our development regulations are based on. And so at this time, it's not completely determined if the site can support the use because they're going to have to take some steps after they know.
So other than those things, they meet the rest of the criteria.
That was what staff found, yes.
And the staff is recommending, if we choose to approve this, that they have to, as a condition of our approval, to contact TDEC and get the septic system evaluated to make sure it can support what they're doing. They also have to get, like you said, the proper building permits, site plan approval, safety inspection by the building department, fire department. So all those things would have to be done as a condition of our approval. If we put those in there.
Staff found that it met the criteria. It did not make any recommendation other than if the board chooses to approve this, staff recommends those conditions.
Could I add those in there?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Jerry, did you have any questions? Gary, did you have any? Veronica? Okay, we've thoroughly discussed this and kicked it around. We've had a month to think about it, and these folks here would like, I'm sure, would like to have a decision one way or the other. I'll entertain a motion at this time.
Mr. Chairman, based on the fact that they do meet the criteria, I make a motion to approve under the conditions that I've just spelled out that are found in our packet as well, and I'm sure they have. I would like to add to that if the ownership of this property ever changes, that this exception goes away, does not carry on from now on.
Would you add a review to that in 1 year or not?
I would love to, but I would like to ask the question, who's going to review it? Is that the codes? Is that planning? Is that
Or
me
staff?
or you or staff or
Staff,
staff review?
yeah. And bring that to us. That's 2 requirements.
Can we just make a clarification that the ownership changes from Renewed Life Ministries just because they are seeking to purchase this property? So if we could just make that clarification.
Okay.
Okay. So to clarify that, if the ownership changes from Renewed Life Ministries and that staff review all of this annually?
Yeah, that's good. We have a motion on the floor. We have a second. Motion fails because there's not a second. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I think this is a great service to the community that needs it, but I think it's the wrong place, the wrong location. I think it needs to be somewhere where it's more commercial area. That's my opinion. I feel that this is an institutional type occupancy. That's why I didn't second the motion earlier. I think it's and in my thought process right now is that it's that type of occupancy, and that's why I'll make a motion to deny the request based on that I feel it is a institutional occupancy instead of what planning department is actually calling it.
Hey, did you get that?
I hate to interject, but I do think if we're going to have a motion to deny, I need to clarify this issue a little bit with the institutional. I don't think the issue of whether it's an institutional home or a family is something you all necessarily have to decide tonight. As has tried to been explained, it's a very confusing issue, but I think that decision is something that staff internally would make outside of this board. If the applicant came before staff and before Doug and said, we want to establish this home by right, then Doug and staff would decide whether or not that definition applied. So I would suggest that if there is a denial, that you make a denial and you indicate which elements were not met, which requirements of the ordinance tonight you don't think necessarily were met or applied. So I think that just needs to be clarified. Rather than just saying that you don't necessarily think the definition applies, you would need to explain the basis for the denial outside of that.
Well, and you're the attorney. I'm not an attorney. I don't have the shingle hanging on my wall. But that was what I was trying to do. I was trying to base my reason based on it is I think it's institutional.
Well, and I guess what I'm trying to explain, and maybe I'm not doing a very good job at it, but that's not a question you have to consider tonight, whether it's an institutional home. That's not part of the requirements before the board tonight, whether it's an institutional or family home. So I guess what I'm getting at is to deny it on that basis wouldn't necessarily fall under the requirements tonight. So if there's a denial, it would need to explain how it doesn't meet one of the general requirements that are listed, which were discussed earlier, whether you think it's a public health, safety, welfare issue, or one of the more specific requirements doesn't apply. That would need to be the basis for the denial. not the definition issue of institution. That's not a question that you all have to worry about tonight. Does that make sense?
Yeah, whatever motion we make on this, folks, make it to where it will pass judicial review. Now, we've been down that road before, and we're just fooling the folks out there by saying these type of things. We've got to have a good legal reason based upon the requirements that we should be looking at. If we don't, it's going to be approved.
I'll tell you what.
All I'm saying.
I understand. I'd like to have clarification from the applicant on something. And I'd like to suspend the rules to ask the question to RLM applicant on the question that I have. Please, sir.
Okay. You want to ask who?
I want the applicant. I'd like to make a motion to suspend the rules to allow the applicant to come back up so I can ask him a question.
Okay. Do we have a second to that? Second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Okay, we're going to ask the applicant to come back.
The question I got earlier, something was brought up that was said that you said. I want to make sure and get your side of it as well. That your the failure ratio you were supposed to set in your meeting at planning was 80%. That 20% went through it. Is that a correct statement?
That's a good statement. Yes, sir.
So you have a failure rate of 80% of people that enter your facility.
If you want, it's not. If you want to call it a failure rate, you can. It's really people who just choose not to do what we ask them to do.
Well, they don't pass. 80% of them don't follow through.
Right.
With.
That's
program.
right. Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Is that it?
Any other questions while he's up here?
I have one, and I think I mentioned this last month. We'll call them students. I don't know what you call them.
What I call them.
Okay. The students, are they supervised 24/7?
Yes,
By
basically.
staff?
I mean, yeah, we have a staff person there 24 hours a day. Now, when they're sleeping, just like you and me, nobody's watching over them, sitting at the door, making sure they don't go outside or anything.
Right. So are they at any time allowed to say, hey, we're going to the store, we'll be back in about a half an hour?
No, sir.
So if they leave the property, they're escorted wherever they go?
Yes.
So you just pretty much keep close eyes on it?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
What keeps them from getting mad and walking off?
Nothing, no more than me and you getting up and walking out.
I understand that.
Right? These men are family. Most men are family men. They have a wife and they have children, just like you and I do. They're not hardened criminals who are just looking to break into somebody's home and to just make anything up and sniff gas and stuff like that and go crazy. You know, these are regular guys, just like me and you. Now, I know I can't convince anybody of that, other than our
That's okay.
Other than our history with where we are now. I mean, you know, our history is that we have had zero problems since our inception.
Any other questions? Thank you. You may be seated.
Yes, sir.
I know you all are struggling with this, and but we need to move on and get this out of the way, one way or the other.
Chairman, I'll make a motion to deny the request, and the reason for the denial is that the program has a 80%, I call it a failure rate or a dropout rate, and that to me that could, with the situations that are the people are there where the drugs, alcohol, and they got some criminal history due to those, that it's a public safety situation, and I make a motion to deny the request.
Do we have a second?
I'll second it so we can get a vote.
Any other discussion of this? Anything needs to be clarified? Call the roll, please.
Gary Farley,
Yes.
Veronica Buchanan, Joe Machado, Jerry Sartain,
Yes.
Michael Rather,
No.
Jared Barrett,
No.
Zane Cantrell.
No. Mr. Attorney, got a 3 and 3.
I believe we still need to,
Pardon?
I believe we still need to have another vote. We've got to have more discussion to either approve or deny this. So,
Yeah. You want to defer this for another month and think about it?
I will say, I don't mean to interject, but it does sound that there's some confusion over this term and this definition, that I, for what it's worth, again, it's up to the board whether you want to defer, but it does appear that there's been some discussion tonight that is for the first time some confusion over some of this language, so.
Could we defer this and let our attorney check this out, do a research, and come back with a report to us? Is that?
I think that's good, because I'll be honest with you, I think there's a 3-3 deadlock right now between those 6, and I don't think that's going to change.
Yeah, this is, I see your point, but I'm not sure that that's something that we need to be dealing with. So I think if you don't, it's just a suggestion. You guys make the motions, and let our attorney get with the planning director and get back with us and clarify this. And I understand the wording is there, and you just can't overlook it. And it may be that we need to make some kind of decision on that because of the wording. So,
To me, with that being in there, it's muddied the water for me, and I that's where I'm at. I think it's a great program. I think the man seems like a great person and what he's doing. I just, with the language that's in there, I go on the law, I go on ordinances, and I go on codes, and it's in there, and I've got a problem with trying to take it out and it still being in there.
okay, do you have a motion now?
I'll make a motion we defer till next month on this agenda item.
And give our attorney time and report back to us next month.
Yes, sir.
For a decision to be made. Okay? Do we have a second to that? Have a second. Call roll, please.
Gary Farley,
Yes.
Veronica Buchanan, Jerry Sartain,
Yes.
Michael Rather,
Yes.
Jared Barrett,
Yes.
Zane Cantrell.
Yes. It is deferred, and it's in your to get us back a report on it next month. I apologize to all of you who are here expecting a decision tonight, but we can't just move straight forward unless we know where we're going. So we'll be back again next month and hopefully be able to make a decision on this. Thank you for being here. The next item of business is a request by Kevin Buck, who is requesting a temporary special exemption approval for a seasonal attraction. And what do you have on that, please?
Application 2017-36, filed by Kevin Ray Buck, involves the property at 3815 John Bragg Highway. It's a request for temporary special exception approval for a seasonal attraction on a property located in the RM Medium Density Residential Zoning District. And we have considered this use since 2010. Each year, Mr. Buck returns to the board to seek approval for the temporary special exception. He has operated the Haunted Woods from this site for the last 6 years, and we've not experienced any issues or problems with the operation of the Haunted Woods. We posted a sign on the property. We had one informational call, and staff finds that it meets the conditions for temporary special exception. And that concludes my presentation.
Okay. Do we have anyone here representing this? It's okay. Just want to make sure you're here. Do we have any questions on it? This is from last year. Do we have a motion on it? Whoa, sorry. We'll open this for a public hearing. I'm getting in it. Open this for a public hearing for anyone who'd like to speak on it. Close the public hearing. Well, I'll entertain a motion now.
Move to approve.
Have a motion be approved. Have a second. Call roll, please.
Gary Farley,
Yes.
Veronica Buchanan, Jerry Sartain,
Yes.
Michael Rather,
Yes.
Jared Barrett,
Yes.
Zane Cantrell.
Yes. The next item is a request by Glenn Chrisman, who is requesting a variance relief on a square foot initially illuminated sign. What do you have on that, please?
Thank you. Application 2017-37, filed by Mr. Glenn Chrisman, involves the location at 1041 Fosterville Road. They are seeking variance relief to allow a 24 square foot internally illuminated sign containing more than 25% changeable copy area on the property located within the RL zone. We received one informational phone call regarding this. This is the site. It's an established church, the Fosterville Baptist Church, and they want to replace the sign that's in the existing monument with a newer, updated sign with internal illumination. They are changing the changeable copy area to automatic changeable copy area. Since the sign is 24 square feet, they are seeking larger than I believe 8.25 square feet of changeable copy area, which would render it having 34% of automatic changeable copy area. So they are seeking variance approval, and this is the sketch of the proposed sign, and it meets all size requirements. And that concludes our presentation.
Okay, I see my old friend, Brother Chrisman's here. If you'll come around, please. I bet he's loving retirement, too.
I am, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, my name is Glenn Chrisman. I'm here this afternoon along with Gary Nobles, one of our church trustees from Fosterville Baptist Church. And as Ms. Glauner has represented, we are requesting a variance from the 25% restriction on automatic changeable copy sign size as established in Section 1205, allowed signs of the zoning ordinance. Our church recently voted to replace our existing changeable letter sign, which is in disrepair, with an electronic changeable copy message board sign, as was illustrated in the materials that you have tonight. Subject to the board's approval of this sign variance request, the proposed replacement is similar in design and size to the existing sign, with the exception of the electronic message board component. If I can give you some sign characteristics, the current and proposed replacement signs are both 4 feet tall and 6 feet wide overall. The changeable letter portion of the current sign is 24 inches tall, 64 inches wide, and the proposed message board replacement is actually a little smaller. It's 18 3/4 inches tall and 63 inches wide. If we limit the message board to 25% of the overall sign size, it would limit us to a 1x6 or a 2x3 on a fairly small sign to begin with. And what that would do effectively is limit the size of the text that we could use, limit any patriotic or religious banners that might be used for Easter programs, Christmas programs, VBS, those kinds of things. And so that's why we're seeking to increase that size just slightly. As Ms. Glauner said, we're asking to increase it to about 34%, which would be about 8.25 square feet, which will require a variance approval from the BZA. Be glad to answer any questions that you may have, and thank you for your consideration and request.
So in the end, whether it's digital or like the sign you have now, it's no more readable area than you have now. It's just because it's electronic.
Well, because of the way the ordinance is written, yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions? Gary? No? Thank you. Keith, take care.
Thank you.
We'll open this for a public hearing for anyone who'd like to speak on it. Close the public hearing. We'll
Motion to approve the request, Mr. Chairman.
have a motion be approved. Have a second. Call roll, please.
Gary Farley,
Yes.
Jerry Sartain,
Yes.
Michael Rather,
Yes.
Jared Barrett,
Yes.
Zane Cantrell.
Yes. The next item we have is a request by Jennifer Boykin, who is special exemption approval for a group child care home. What do you have on that, please?
Thank you. Application 2017-38, filed by Ms. Jennifer Boykin, involves the property located at 165 Stones River Lane. She is seeking special exception approval for the establishment of a group child care home upon a property located in the RM zone. And the site is 22 acres. She would like to use a portion of her home for daycare services. It's her plan to establish a play area on the property, and she has been in contact with the state to determine what her regulations are, and obviously will be required to meet those. Staff found that she met the requirements for the requests for the group child care home, and we received one informational call regarding this, and we've posted a picture on the site. And this is what the applicant supplied us. She's placing the play area towards the back of the property, or back of the home. So, and that concludes our presentation.
I assume you're representing this. Okay.
I just this past weekend finished my fence, over a couple hundred extra square footage, just to allow for extra play area. As you can see, I'm kind of in the middle of nowhere. I have trees and rock all around me, so as far as really disturbing anyone, no one's even going to really hear me at all. I have great access to Stones River with a circle driveway as far as codes for state. Basically, the garage will be the new area for the daycare, and hope to get it running as quick as possible.
Any questions?
I'm assuming you're Jennifer Boykin.
Okay. Yes.
Any other questions? Clarification.
I'm sorry, yes.
Pool has a fence around it?
It does. I went a foot above regulation.
The others? Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll open this for a public hearing for anyone who'd like to speak on this request. Close the public hearing.
Move to be approved, Mr. Chairman.
Have a motion be approved.
Second.
Have a second. Call the roll, please.
Gary Farley,
Yes.
Jerry Sartain,
Yes.
Michael Rather,
Yes.
Jared Barrett,
Yes.
Zane Cantrell.
Yes. The next item is a request by Verizon Wireless, and this is a monopole communication tower. What do you have on that, please?
Thank you. Application 2017-39 involves the property at 7808 Rocky Fork, Almaville Road, and Verizon Wireless is seeking special exception approval for the establishment of a monopole communications tower measuring 190 feet in height upon the property located in the RM zone. And this is the site. It's has a long driveway off of Rocky Fork, Almaville, and then the area of the tower will be somewhat located on this portion of the property, if you can see where the arrow is. It does meet all the setbacks for communications towers, as mentioned in the staff report, and we have received a report from Larry Perry, who is the third-party consultant, and he is here tonight to answer any questions. We posted a sign on the property. They'll have to go through site plan review if approval is obtained tonight for the special exception before they can actually obtain a permit to establish the tower on the property. And these are photos of the site. The applicant's providing 3 additional antennas for co-locations to limit the proliferation of towers throughout the county. And staff has recommended approval with conditions. And that concludes our presentation.
I'm going to ask, is that it? Did you finish?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I'm going to ask Larry to come up, our resident scholar, and give us a report. If you want to know anything about cell towers, right here.
My name is Larry Perry. I live at 11464 Saga Lane in Knoxville, Tennessee. Before I begin, the thing that began your agenda tonight, I think seemed like I heard that the last time I was here, so we're getting started. Anyway, this is an application. Let me make this preface before I get into this discussion real quick. Ladies and gentlemen of the BZA and the Planning Commission, you're about to get inundated with tower requests. By the year 2020, there's going to have to be 200 towers, small towers, within a square mile, each square mile of area. The reason being is by changing the federal government, the FCC, and international bodies are changing the frequencies of all cellular communication. In the new one, the range is only 400 yards, which is 4 football fields. So it's not going to be tall towers. It's going to be 35-foot ones. So I'll just give you that hint a little ahead of time. Where your problem is going to be, as I explained to Doug and the group before, is going to be, in order for this to happen, you have to dig up your streets to put in fiber line between the towers, so keep that in the back of your mind. Anyway, back to this one. You had 3 of them, Verizon towers tonight. 2 of them I reckon you're still going to listen to. This one met all the requirements. As you can see, it's in the middle of a wooded area, and it's actually a very good location, I found. And we asked them to have 3 recommendations that they had. Number 1 is to submit a letter that they'll complete the site within 1 year. Now, here's what happens there. We had a situation down in Georgia where an applicant, I won't mention the name of the carrier, but they made an application, didn't do anything with it for 3 years. And in that 3-year period, the community built up around it, and then when they started putting the tower up, all hell broke loose. So that's why we say now, get them to commit within 1 year, and they will do that. Verizon will do that. Don't get stuck in a hole on that one. Also, that if a tower isn't used for any period of 180 days, have them send a letter saying they're willing to remove it at their expense. That's pretty common. We have that. And the last thing that I've been recommending here, for all 3 of these applicants, they've come out with a new wrap. It's made by 3M, and you can wrap it around the antennas, and you can't see the antennas. It reflects the sky and everything. It really works good. And we've required that all up and down the East Coast, and it's been very, very successful. So I highly recommend that they do that. Now, this is not an order. We can't require them to use it because it's a private company that makes the thing, but we can make a recommendation that they do, Mr. Chairman. I think it's what they ought to do. If you have any other questions, gentlemen, I'll be glad to answer it.
Questions? Remain up here, Larry. I'm sorry. Did you have?
Just one. It was pointed out to me that they do not have their FAA letter yet.
Okay, the question is they don't have the FAA letter. Their tower is such that it doesn't require it. Anything below 200 feet is not required. Now, as a practical matter, when they register the antenna with the FCC, they will have to have it then. But that's just a matter of FCC protocol as opposed to FAA. FAA says anything under 200 feet, you don't have to have lights or doesn't have to have the no hazard requirement. Good question.
Larry, remain up here, and just in case, open this for a public hearing. Do we have anyone that wants to speak on this?
The applicant is here and probably would like to speak.
Yeah, come on up. I'm sorry. Stay up here, Larry. We may need to answer some of your questions.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Joey Hargis. I'm the attorney of record with law firm Baker Dawson here for this request, and it's a pleasure to meet Mr. Perry in person. Mr. Perry's probably forgotten more than I've learned in my time in this business, but as your staff talked about, ArcelorMittal does fully comply with the ordinance requirements here in Rutherford County. And this site is as Mr. Perry talked about, a needed site more and more with folks streaming and data. This is a capacity site to help offload and provide additional coverage for this area. I've submitted everything into the record. I think staff talked about it complies, so I'm here if you have any questions for me.
Any questions? Okay,
Thank you, Chair.
Then we'll open this for a public hearing for anyone who'd like to speak, if you'll come forward.
Hello. My name is Doss Studenberg. Do I have 3 minutes or?
Just 3 minutes.
About 3 minutes, okay. I live at the property that's right across the street, and we got the notice for it, so thank you for the notice. We moved up here from Doral, Florida, which is a very packed area down South Florida, and came out to the country life out here. I really enjoy it out here. This is a really great place. I'm very happy. About 2 years ago, we established our place. We have that weird-looking house that has a tower on the side. And I like to go and look out and just look at the beautiful scenery and everything. It's just been part of what we had and what attracted us to that specific spot. Well, we heard a tower is coming up, so thank you for getting all the information, everything with what was there. I had some questions, and I just basically wanted to raise some concerns. I was wondering, am I able to ask questions additional, or okay, great, thank you.
Got our resident expert back there. He may.
Okay, thank you very much, and thank you for the information on the FAA. I started looking at about it, and I'll just kind of basically. Obviously, I'm concerned with the property values around the area. When I look at going through and driving through, there are trees, but when the seasons change, you're going to be able to look right through. So it is vacant at the moment, but there is going to be growth that's going to happen. Obviously, we see lots of houses growing around the area. So I was concerned with the height. It currently is 109. I was looking at the regulations. I'm concerned about a flashing light. There's going to be no light. Can we have this required that there is no light during this construction?
Yeah, it's not required, it is in the report.
But it will be in the report, so they cannot put a light. Okay, thank you. That was one of my biggest concerns that I had. The second, I would love to have it required to have that wrap, if at all possible. I mean, a 3M wrap, please. That would be the greatest, so I won't have to see whatever this invisible cloak wrap is. It would be fantastic for that. But I don't know. I'm pretty happy with that. Okay. That's it.
Anyone else?
If we can just require that, that would be great. Thank you.
Anyone else? Close the public hearing. Entertain a motion on it.
Just a point of clarification, I think I heard this correctly, that we cannot require them to wrap that correctly?
No.
That's far beyond our authority. Okay. Okay.
This is set by federal law. We can't tell them where to sit it. That's their decision. So, and a lot of other things that's set by federal law. All we can do is review and say it does meet the requirements that we have here, and that's why we have our scholar to review all of this. I'll entertain a motion.
Considering the fact that this application meets the general requirements for special exception, I move to approve.
I have a motion to be approved. We have a second. Call the roll, please.
Gary Farley.
Yes.
Jerry Sartain.
Yes.
Michael Rather.
Yes.
Jared Barrett.
Yes.
Zane Cantrell.
Yes. The next item is a request by Verizon Wireless. This is at 7461 Miller Johnson Road for cell tower. What do you have on that, please?
Thank you. Application 2017-40, located at 7461 Miller Johnson Road, is a request for special exception approval from Verizon for the establishment of a monopole communications tower measuring 185 feet in height upon the property located in the residential medium zoning district. And the site is a 139-acre site, and the tower lease area will be located in this portion of the site. We did receive 2 informational calls regarding this request. There are photos of the surrounding site. We have the report from Mr. Perry and have included some of his recommendations in the staff report. This tower will meet all the setback requirements from the height to the property lines equal to or greater than, and they will provide 3 additional antennas for co-location opportunities. They'll have to go through site plan review upon approval before they can actually establish the tower upon the site, and that concludes our presentation.
Larry, do you want to give us a report on this? Okay.
Board. My name is Vicki Farmer. I live at 9873 Fielding Road in Ooltewah, Tennessee. I'm here tonight to represent Verizon Wireless on this particular site. And I believe we have met all of the qualifications in the ordinance, and I'm going to open this up for questions at this time.
Questions?
From the board?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good report.
Thank you.
We'll open this for a public hearing for anyone who'd like to speak on this request. Close the public hearing. Have a motion on it.
Make a motion to approve the request.
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Gary Farley,
Yes.
Jerry Sartain,
Yes.
Michael Rather,
Yes.
Jared Barrett,
Yes.
Zane Cantrell.
Yes. It is approved. Do we have anything else?
No, sir.
All right. We are adjourned. Thank you.